We don't have any music today because I'm still trying to work out my copyrighted issue. Hey everybody, I know it's late. Guys, please don't bust my chops about being in the office late. Can we not do that? I'd really be grateful. Look, I'm only going to be with you 15 minutes, okay? And I need to get out of here. I need to be on the road is what it is. Uh, Thank you so much for joining me wherever you are. Please jump on very quickly. We're not going to be here long. Let me just double check my internet connection here because, sometimes when the picture's blurry, it really doesn't do me any favors. And I don't like talking to you when my picture's blurry. Well, it's good. It's fine. Once again, thank you for joining me wherever you are, whether it's Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Bogota, Colombia, the Maldives, Jamaica, wherever you are. Thank you for being with me for a few moments. Usually, I don't often do it. I don't do it all the time, but usually when I jump on the live at this time of night from my office, one of the most common comments I get in the newsfeed is, "I'll go home. Mr. Moya, you need to be home." Guys, I understand that and I appreciate your concern, but here's the thing. I'm a grown man and I go home when I want, number one. Number two, I've got that down pat. You don't have to worry about that. We're fine, okay? There's no need for you to be concerned about that. Although I will say I appreciate your concern. Okay, real quick, let's just get into it real quick. Just a few shout outs before we begin. And also, I need to ask you if you can hear me loud and clear. I would imagine you can, so that we can get this thing on the road and start talking about this, and then we can sort of gloss over it. Hello, Australia. Thank you for watching, Australia. Bless you. Thank you so much. Kabwe, thank you for watching. Vayama Murishani, Vamwell, go home. It's late. I knew. You see there. Here's the thing. I knew. I get this. I get this all the time. Vamwell, go home. It's late. Okay. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the question, and I'm going to throw it up to you so that you guys know exactly what we're talking about. Should Kidist and Yomaps charge that Zed podcast 30,000 kwacha to appear on their show? Now, let me give you guys some context for those of you that do not know what's going on. Apparently, because you never know with social media can sometimes lead you down the wrong path, even when you don't mean to go down that wrong path. But apparently, there's a videotape that's circulating now, and it shows Kidist talking to. She's sitting there. She's in a swimsuit, and she's having some nachos or something, and she's having a very casual, almost personal conversation with her husband. Of course, her husband is not in the picture. He's not in the frame. All you see is Kidist, and you can hear Yo Maps' voice. But Kidist is there and she's talking. And one of the things that she talks about, and this is the conversation that we're going to have tonight. One of the things she talks about is she alludes to the fact that my understanding is that the team from that Zed podcast, there's a very famous podcast here in Zambia. In fact, I would say the most famous podcast in the whole country. I mean, these two guys, they're these two young, brilliant hosts, even though sometimes I find them, but that's the nature of their show. I mean, these kids, it's K Plus and Elson. They are the hosts of the show called That Zed Podcast. They're sharp kids. I mean, these young men are very quick. They ask you fast questions. They provoke answers from you. They ask you questions sometimes that you may feel uncomfortable with, as far as answering them is concerned, but they ask you these questions. And this team of young Zambian entrepreneurs, they move from set to set to set, and depending on your needs, they sort of meet you where you are. And the aesthetics of the show, by aesthetics, I mean the way the show appears. It's beautifully lit. The cameras are perfectly, placed. It's professionally edited. The hosts are sharp. They know the subject. They don't show up and say things like, so, tell us who you are. No, they sort of do their research before they speak to you, which is a mark of a very good host, a host that knows who they're talking about. They know their subject. Well, these two guys, K Plus and Elson, they are the hosts of the show, and it's a growing show here in Zambia. It's in my view, it's completely changed the landscape of podcasting, and these guys do an amazing job. Anyway, and they've had many different guests on their show. It's like a talk show, okay? And they've had a plethora, a multiplicity of multitudinous tens of different guests from different walks of life. Some of their shows were controversial. Some of their shows are interesting, enlightening. I mean, they did a show with the lady that owns a gem factory deal that was really interesting. They did an interview with Mwizu Kanji, which I thought was interesting, even though I felt that Elson sort of kind of bullied Mwizu Kanji a bit. But that's the nature of their show. Excuse me. So they've had a repertoire of different guests. Now, here's the controversy. Just a few hours ago, or this might have been yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, if I've got the timeline wrong, but apparently what happened was, here we go. I need to remove that because everybody's going to be talking about that. Apparently what happened was Kidist said that she would not consider going on that show if she was not paid 30,000 kwacha. The gist of their conversation was, if Kidist or Yo Maps or together or individually, if they were to go on that show, Kidist apparently was saying, look, 30,000 is not enough money. Let's be clear, guys, and this is something you guys have to know, the public has to know, and I think if you don't know this, then you don't know how social media works. You don't know how the art of celebrity works. And just from her statement alone, I can tell you quite frankly and quite honestly, Kidist has no idea of how this works. Okay, let me explain to you how it works. And I'm going to give you this very, very good example. And the moment I give you this example, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, and it's this. Many years ago, when the Oprah Winfrey was coming into its own, remember Oprah? Oprah started on AM Chicago, and then she sort of transitioned into starting her own show. When the Oprah Winfrey show was extremely famous, back when it was at its peak, one of the questions that was often asked about the Oprah Winfrey show was, are they paid by Harpo Studios to appear as a guest on Oprah's show? Oprah Winfrey categorically said, absolutely not. We do not pay guests to be on our show. It's not, our business is to not pay the guests. Our business is to interview them so that the audience comes to us. That's the formula. You are wrong and you are misled if you think for one moment that you can go into a very famous program and expect them to pay you an astronomical amount of money. Now, let me be honest with you, okay? I'll be honest with you without being too specific. There's certain guests I've had on my show. I've never had, okay, well, there is one that asked me she said to me, she said, well, if you want me to be on your show, you're going to have to pay me 5,000. I said, bye, because that's not how it works. But let me say this. There are guests I've never charged. They've never charged me, but I have given them a stipend. You know, when someone comes and you know that, you know, they've either booked a taxi or they've asked a friend to bring them, or maybe they came on their own, you know, just as a little token, a little stipend, a little something to say, you know what, here's something for you guys. You know, thanks for coming out. I know you might have gone out of your way to be a guest on my show, but here's something for me to you as a token of appreciation. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's everything wrong with a star, an artist, a celebrity to sit down in front of a talk show, in front of a show, okay? Not a speaking gig, not a performance gig. It's different if a nightclub calls you and says, yo, Maps, we want you to perform at this nightclub. Well, you're providing a service and you're bringing patrons to that nightclub. So, of course, it would stand to reason that you would present your fee. But when you are being invited as a guest to talk about you and to talk about your art, to talk about your craft, to give not only your audience, but the audience of that show, to give them an insight into who you are, how you think, how you operate, how your pistons work. Never charge. And not only that, but you can't sit there and think that you're okay with saying 50,000 is nothing. Do you know what you're doing to yourself? Do you know the type of image and energy you are putting out there when you say things like that? Guys, tell me in the comments below. What I need is I need to read some of your comments. Do you know what you're do you know the vibe you're giving off? When you say 30,000 is nothing, I can't go on that show for less than 30,000 or for 30,000. What you're saying is you're demeaning that show. You have just passed up an opportunity for you to be introduced to a different audience. And guys, it doesn't matter how famous a person is. There's certain shows, there's certain programs, there's certain podcasts that when you appear on that show, it's a symbiotic relationship. You gain fans, they gain fans. Okay, it's a give and take. But if you approach it and say things like, no, that's 30,000 is nothing. What you're saying is you are more important than that show and that you're doing that show a favor. Never despise the days of small beginnings. You must know that. There was a time your Maps was insignificant. There was a time Kidist was an unknown. There was a time where nobody knew who you were. But it took someone who recognized your talent to bring your talent to the fore. In the same vein, by the same token, when a show like Zed Podcasts invites you, now, guys, you must know that Zed Podcast is not just an ordinary show anymore. Those guys are big time. Those guys open doors. Those guys are in the center of the action. Those boys have their finger on the pulse, and it is an honor and a privilege for them to invite you to their show. You are not doing them any favors. It's a symbiotic relationship. Do you know what symbiosis is? Can you tell me what symbiosis is? What is a symbiotic relationship? A symbiotic relationship is a relationship where you win and I win, where you gain and I gain. And so when that Z podcast invites you, guess what? You're going to win. They are going to win. But if you put money front and center and say, no, 5,000, that's nothing, you've turned the conversation into money. This is my observation, guys. I find that the people that constantly talk about money, if that's all you ever talk about, if money is always front and center of everything you do, now it's different, guys. You must know there are different compartments. Okay? When my point is this, when you are invited to a show like that, and then all you talk about is money, then you don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know how this works. And this is my point, and I'm going to say this last thing, and then I've got to go. I find it's been my understanding, it's been my experience. Now, guys, remember, I'm 53 years old. I've been around for a while. I mean, this is not my first rodeo, okay? I've been around for some time, almost over half a century. So I've lived, I know. My experience has been this. Anytime you hear young people consistently talk about money, that's all they talk about. They don't talk about anything else. They always talk about how much they've got and how my experience is they really don't have it. I've known that to be true. I'm going to say it again because I need you to get it. The people that constantly talk about money, that's all they talk about. Those are the people that don't have it. Your talent speaks for you. It speaks for you. Let your talent guide you. Let your talent open doors for you. When shows like that Z podcast calls you, they phone you and they say, hey, we want you to be on our show. Honey, you go running. Go running, because that's a relationship that's going to benefit you and it's going to benefit them. Yes, sir. Boom. I got to go. Bye.